This is easy.
What is up, GOAT World? It is me, your boy JDZ, and I'm back at you again with another GOAT format video. Back by popular demand, I have the top 10 series. It has returned. In the top 10 series, I go through a variety of different things and give you a top 10 in GOAT format. And today we'll be covering the top 10 dark monsters. We've already covered all of the attributes and we're going to finish it up with dark monsters. And this list was incredibly difficult because, as you know, if you follow GOAT format in any capacity, you understand that the dark monsters are by far and away the very best of the attributes. So it was very, very difficult to make this list. So I wanted to keep it as meta relevant as possible when I'm going through this list. And make sure, as always, you get down into the comment section. Let me know what I got right and let me know what I got wrong in a nice, peaceful debate, because that is the best part about making these type of videos, the discussion that goes along with it and who was right and who was wrong. So without further ado, make sure you go ahead and hit that like button, turn your notification bells on, and subscribe to the channel as we hop on in to the top 10 dark monsters of GOAT format. To kick this thing off at number 10, I have none other than the mystical Tomato. The Mystic Tomato is going to lead the charge in the number 10 spot. I put it there specifically because of its iconism. There are some cards that I think that I did leave off that are a little bit better than Mystic Tomato, metagamically speaking, but I do think this card is absolutely rock solid, and I believe its stock is on the rise. I believe all the recruiter attribute stocks are on the rise just based on some of the trends that I've personally noticed with Mystic Tomato, Abyss Soldier, Zaborg the Thunder Monarch. I think this card is great. It does have some tremendous targets that it can get at that 1500, so I think this card is rock solid. That's why I had to put it starting at number 10. Moving on to number 9. This one is a little bit controversial, but I'm going to go number 9. I'm putting Cyberjar here at the number 9 spot. It probably could have been off the list. It probably could have been in that number 10 position, but I had to put it here because of this card's impact. When this card is played, I truly feel that this card is significantly underplayed in GOAT format because it is such a game upending type card. But in that burn deck and in the empty jar deck and in the Ron control style decks where this card is featured, when this card resolves, the impact that it has on the game is so dramatic that I had to include this card on the list because it is a terror. It is a menace when it goes off. It's 5 cards are just being added and things are just being blown up, and it can just bring you right back into the game where you're probably going to lose, or it can make you, lose a game that you probably could have won. It's one of those really, really swingy cards. So I had to put it in there at the top 10. I think the card is super powerful, especially in that burn deck, especially in the empty jar strategies, and especially when you don't see it coming, when it's a surprise factor. So number 9, I'm going to go ahead and put the Cyberjar. Lock it in. Cyberjar. Moving on. Number 8, I'm going to bring in Tsukiyomi. I'm putting Tsukiyomi in that number 8 position. Even though the control strategies are at an all-time low, I still think Tsukiyomi is basically a staple in most of the turbo decks, most of the control decks, Go Control and Chaos Control, and in some of the rogue and random strategies, Tsukiyomi can find a place in those types of decks. I had to put this card in here because its impact against the warrior strategy, that ability to flip stuff face down, it can pretty much clear that entire deck, and it is a bane in their existence, the spirit effect of bouncing it back to the hand. And I had to include this card because its effect is just so dynamic. I love the interaction that this card can generate, the ability to reset flip effect monsters, the ability to take out larger monsters, the monarchs, that just slays all those things, and then it can return back to the hand, and it's really cool. It's really cool. So I like, because it just adds another layer to the format. We do have a very slow kind of format, and when you have cool cards doing cool things like Tsukiyomi can do, it just adds a little bit more flavor to it. So I had to include Tsukiyomi coming in at that number 8 position. Okay, moving on to number 7, I have Kaiku, the bead shaking menace. I had to put Kaiku. The Ghost Destroyer is going to make it into the number 7 position, and a lot of people might disagree with Kaiku's placement. Some people might think Kaiku should be a little bit higher. Some people might think it should be a little bit lower, or maybe not even on the list at all, because his impact isn't as great as it once was. But I think his stock is still on the increase. I think it's still rising, especially in that warrior strategy. I've seen some turbo players begin to main deck Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer and also side deck Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer because the Chaos Turbo strategies are just all over the place. They are the meta. They are the main deck that is played in this format, and Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer is a good answer to it. Not the best answer, but he's definitely a solid rigid option. If you can start attacking and clearing those light monsters or clearing the attributes from the graveyard, Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer can be that guy that can do that. 1800 is pretty much the standard when it comes to stats. That's 700 defense. Speaking of the card we were just talking about before, and Tsukiyomi can clear this thing, but still, I think you're just trying to get him on the field. And I've seen sometimes where you can just stick the Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer, protect him a little bit, and your opponent just might be jammed up on chaos and they just can't make a play. So they might have you out resource, out card advantage, but they can't put anything on the field, or they can't take over the game because you have this Kaiku just holding down a position in terms of his 1800 attack and also his ability to thwart off the chaos summons. So I think this card is rock solid. So I had to put him in at that number 7 position. Okay, so moving on to number 6. We're almost at the top 5. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Turn your notification bells on if you're still rocking with me. At number 6, we have Dokoichi, the battle chanted locomotive, the second flip effect that's going to make it into the top 10. And I had to put this card here. This card is just played so heavily. I don't think Dokoichi is that good personally. I don't think Dokoichi is that good, but I had to put him in there because he has the ability to plus 1. You know, cards that can plus on their own, cards that can plus and also apply pressure, cards that can plus and then continue to attack downhill. You had to put it in there. The Chaos Turbo players are just using this card so highly. The Chaos Control players are also utilizing this card. The Go Control players can utilize this card. Anybody that wants to set a card and flip it, gain another card, you know, and then attack, I think that is really neat. You got cards like Dark Mimic. You got cards that can also do very similar things, but the ability to flip plus and then attack, cause pressure onto your opponent, I think that is just an invaluable resource, man. So I had to put him slightly above the Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer in my opinion. I think those two can kind of flip back and forth. Maybe Dokoichi can go a little bit lower, but I think this card is too good to not be mentioned in the top 10 in GOAT format. Okay, so moving on, we're top 5. Stay alive. We are in the top 5 of GOAT format, and we have our third flip effect monster. I'm putting Knight Assailant, and this 5, 6, 7 slot, I think those are all kind of, you can kind of determine where those 3 go, but I think I got it right. I think Knight Assailant is probably a little bit better than Dokoichi in my opinion, because he can also plus, but he can also manipulate your hand when it comes to Graceful Charity and all your discards and things of that sort. So I think Knight Assailant is a little bit better than Dokoichi. I think Knight Assailant is a little bit better than Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer, and it can also set up these weird positions when you got Tsukiyomi, Knight Assailant set up together. You can kind of start Tsuk looping your thing and blowing up all your opponent's stuff, and just that when you can Graceful Charity, kick out 2 Knight Assailants, add 2 back to hand, which is just so ridiculous. This card can't miss timing. It should have been limited to 1. The fact that we have 2 of this card in GOAT format is kind of an oversight, I believe. We should have only had this thing at 1, but still, it is what it is. So Knight Assailant, super powerful card, super strong card. It didn't have to be a Dark Monster too. I mean, they just did too much with this card. They really, really, really did. So I'm putting Knight Assailant way up here in the top 5 as the 5th best Dark Monster in GOAT format. Okay, moving on to number 4. I got to include the Critter. I have Sangan here at number 4. Some people might argue Sangan probably could have been a little bit higher in my opinion. It's basically a staple. Every single deck in GOAT format can play Sangan if they really wanted to. Even the Reasoning Gate decks, I've seen those decks include Sangan sometimes. Burn, Turbo, Warrior can play Sangan sometimes. I've seen a lot of Sangan being used in this format because of its ability to just float. This card probably could have realistically been banned as well when they banned Witch of the Black Forest, because that floating effect is just so obnoxious sometimes. It just goes from the field to the graveyard. You get something from your deck. Ridiculous. Also, it has 1,000 attack and it's 3-star, so it can pressure underneath the floodgates. It can get down and it can just, you know, just be so annoying. When you have an open board and you got your Sakuretsu set or you got your Mirror Force set and your opponent summons Sangan on you and just attacks for that free and clear 1,000, you still break again your next turn, they get you for another 1,000. You're just like, man, oh man, I hate Sangan. But for those reasons alone, you got to put this guy very, very high in the top 10. I think this card is absolutely cracked, and we have to acknowledge that. So Sangan, I'm putting Sangan at the number 4 position. We're moving on to number 3. We're almost there. At number 3, I'm going to include the Breaker, the Magical Warrior, and this guy probably could have dropped too. This guy probably could have dropped. I'm not gonna lie. Breaker's stock is plummeting in my opinion. I believe the traps in this game are way too chainable for Breaker the Magical Warrior, and he's not as effective as he used to be. But man, oh man, when he's good, he's great. And I had to put him at number 3. I mean, I had to put him at number 3 because he is just so good sometimes, man. Because of the ability, as I stated before with Dokoichi, when I stated before with Knight Assailant, when I stated before with all these cards, plussing and minus the card advantage game in GOAT format is the way that the game is played these days, and Breaker the Magical Warrior has the ability to go plus 1, not only 1 sometimes, he can go plus 2. He can kill the monster and kill the spell trap card, and I think that is just so incredible. This card also could be banned in GOAT format. Is that strong, is that annoying, is that obnoxious, but the game has evolved around the existence of this guy. Every spell or trap card that people put down these days is very chainable, and you're always accounting for your opponent's Breaker the Magical Warrior, how effective it will be against you at certain moments of the game. So the guy's value is diminishing a little bit, and I've seen Breaker Breaker fall to the side decks a lot of times in some builds, but for the most part, this dude is a super staple and he's played in virtually every deck in the format, and I think it's really cool. So I had to put him all the way up here at that number 3 position. Okay, moving on. We are almost done. We're moving on to the top 2. The top 2 coming in at second place. This one's going to cause a lot of controversy. People may not agree with me, but this is going to cause a little bit of controversy in GOAT format, and this list could change. The Dark Monsters, I think, could change just based on meta swings and tendencies that duels are, displaying. But this one could change. I'm going to put Chaos Sorcerer here at number 2, but Chaos Sorcerer has to go in at number 2 because its ability is just so great. It's so powerful. It's a format warping, format defining, format threatening card. It is so overplayed, it's ridiculous. The Chaos Turbo deck is played so significantly, the Chaos Control deck is played so significantly, but the reason I didn't put Chaos Sorcerer as number 1 is because there are so many decks that can get away with not playing Chaos Sorcerer at all. And I think if your impact is so great, then I think more decks should have to include you in order to be successful. Even though the best decks do play Chaos Sorcerer, I still think some Warrior decks can get away without it, or Earth can get away without it, Burn can obviously get away without it, and other things like that. And the card can brick sometimes. It is not always going to be live. It's not always going to be ready. You can't always put it on the field, but when it is live and when it is ready, that free special summon you can bring down for that free plus value is so immense sometimes that Chaos Sorcerer is just a format warping, format defining card. So I had to put this guy way high on the Dark Monsters as number 2. But before we get into number 1, I will go ahead and include, because I know the comment section is going to light me up with this list. People are already probably typing about how ass my list is and how jacked up it is and how terrible it is and how I got it all wrong. But I'm gonna go ahead and give you my also rans of cards that I think should have probably been included on this list and that I really try to fit onto this list, and you guys tell me where they would fit. So in no particular order, I'm going to go over the cards right now, and the first card I'm going to talk about is going to be Spirit Reaper. I think the value of this card is only on the rise. I think it's increasing. I think this card is super duper strong in GO format. It should be almost staple level activity because it can defend, it can assault, it can rip cards from hand, it can plus, it can protect you. I think this card is really strong, and I don't, for the life of me, understand why no one really plays it that much. I think this card is one of those cards that should be played at a much heavier rotation. Another card I'm going to talk about that could potentially be on this list is going to be Donald Z. The one-eyed purple-haired menace could possibly make it onto this list. It is a tomato target. It is a heavily featured in a Warrior deck. It causes a lot of problems. Rutherford Dawn is a very powerful play in GOAT format, so it could have made it onto this list, but I just don't see a card that is just so much worse than Dawn that Dawn would have to be able to replace it. So I had to go ahead and leave that guy. Also, Dawn isn't played in virtually a lot of decks, maybe just the Warriors, and maybe I've seen some GOAT control decks in future Dawn Zalug. So just because of that, I couldn't comfortably put Dawn into the upper echelon of the top 10. And next one, I have to, if I'm making a top 10 dark, I have to feature Jinzo, the Android Psycho Shocker, just because of his iconic nature and what he provided to this game. There was a time in this game where Jinzo was a staple in this format. I think those times can return. I really feel that way, that Jinzo can still beat anybody to this day, but I just don't think it's played at a high enough clip to include in the top 10. A card that I really had a hard time leaving off of the top 10 is going to be Zombara the Dark. Zombara the Dark should have been in the top 10, I believe, because it's played so much, and this card single-handedly kind of keeps the Warrior strategies at bay. And I think its ability at 2100 is just so slept on. Even though it can attack direct, that sucks. I think I kind of could have put Zombara in there, maybe even on Miss Tomato, maybe over Cyberjar. Zombara could have gone into the top 10, but I decided to leave him off into the also ran category. And the last one I'm going to talk about is going to be the Cyberstein. I think Cyberstein is a has format warping potential as well. He does anchor that Cyberstein Reasoning Gate deck. I've seen it splashed into Tomato control or Tomato aggro kind of decks, and he can just come and steal games. Cold Wave and Stein, Royal Decree and Stein. It's a mess. This card is super bannable as well. And I think if it were played a little bit more, maybe it could find its way into the top 10 as well. But I had to leave it off to the side because it's not played that much. And a lot of people don't know how to use this card effectively. And it causes people to lose a lot of games because of Cyberstein. So I had to leave him down here. But still, I think this card is literally format warping. And if in the right hands, I think can just absolutely destroy people. With that, go ahead and like and subscribe as we get on into the number 1. So as you guys, if you really follow this game, you already know what is going to be the number 1 Dark Monster of GO format, and it has to be. It has to be this way. It has to be this way. As much as I hate it, the number 1 Dark Monster in GO format is none other than Gravekeeper's Spy. Gravekeeper's Spy is by far and away, in my opinion, the #1 dark monster in Go format, probably the #1 monster in Go format, because this card is ridiculous. Okay, this card is format breaking. This card is format destroying. This card, again, this is my opinion. This is me speaking with my opinion. I believe Gravekeeper Spy is single-handedly ruining GOAT format. In my opinion, it's played that much. Earth can play it. Burn can play it. Chaos Turbo can play it. Warriors can play it. Freaking Goat Control can play it. Chaos Control can play it. The rogue decks can play it. Everybody's playing this card. It's like your deck starts with Pot, Graceful Duo, 3 Gravekeeper Spy. It is all over the place because it can do so much. You know, you flip it, you add 1, you're automatically putting 24 down the pipes. You flip it, you add 1, you're automatically putting another 2,000 defense on the board. I've seen someone set Gravekeeper Spy and it'll just completely wall up. You draw 5, 6 cards sometimes, and you're literally back into the game. A game that you probably should have lost if it was literally any other card. It is so ridiculously powerful. I had to put it above Chaos Sorcerer. I might get a little bit of conflict for that, but Chaos Sorcerer is not live all the time, as I stated. GK Spy is always going to be live. You can always, at least at a minimum, put the card down on defense position, defend yourself, get another one, and continue to play the game. You can't always do that with Chaos Sorcerer. And also, when you do resolve its effect and you get a plus from your deck and you start attacking with it, if they destroy it and they use a card on it, then they just neg themselves in the long run because you just plus this thing from your deck. 1,200 attack, 2,000 defense is absolutely preposterous, man. I think this card is so broken. It's very bannable. It's so ridiculous. And I had to put it at #1. Maybe someday there will be some developments to get this card back at bay or somehow to control this thing. But right now, I think it's just completely out of hand. And this card, in my opinion, is why the Chaos Turbo strategy is played so heavily and why it's so consistent, because GK Spy is the card that kind of is the glue that kind of holds that deck together. And without it, it would not be that good. So here's my top 10. You guys let me know in the comment section. I know you will, what I got right, what I got wrong, what I left off. I'm sure there could be some cards that are left off. There are a whole ton of dark monsters in here, and I obviously couldn't add them all, but let me know and I will be glad to see that. And also, if you like the top 10 series, make sure you get in the comment section and let me know. I have so many ideas of top 10 things I want to do, so get into the comment section and let me know what you guys want to see as the top 10 series has returned. Well, duelists, that's all I have for this video. As always, I'm JDZ. I play GOATs. Until the next time, shout out to all the real ones. Salute to the OGs. Peace.